So this question is from 1991 gate paper question. So I would like to first of all clear the question or make you understand the question completely, because few terms are a little bit misleading. They are going to make you think a little bit for more time unnecessarily. It's given that in a shaft with a transverse hole, as the hole to the shaft diameter ratio is increased, the torsional stress concentration factor will be what? It will increase or decrease. So here what they are saying is, what they actually mean is, a shaft is there, a hole is there. So transverse hole means it's not that like we're drilling a hole across its length. Understand? So though they use transverse hole, they mean this particular spherical hole itself. Okay. So there is some hole which is placed in the between or along the length here. Understand? So if this particular hole to the shaft diameter is increasing, so if you take this particular shaft diameter as d and you take this hole diameter as small d, so if you take this particular cross section at this location of this blowhole or particular hole here, this is small d and this is capital D here. So if you look at this location or look at this picture, this shaded area is nothing but the material, okay, where metal is present. So small d by capital D is the ratio. Understand? Small d by capital D is the ratio of the hole diameter to the shaft diameter. If this is going on increasing means, you are increasing the size of the hole. Everybody understanding this thing? Increasing d by d ratio means we are increasing the size of the hole for the shaft. Is it right or not? Yes? Okay? Yeah. So increasing the size of the hole here. So one thing is very sure that like bigger is the hole, more is the stress concentration. So more is the stress concentration means more will be the value of stress concentration factor. Understand? So the answer should be increase here. So they are saying that the hole to the shaft diameter ratio is increased, the torsional stress concentration factor should be increasing here. The answer should be increasing. The answer should not be decreasing. Many people have given the answer as decreasing here. Is it clear to everybody? Is it clear? So this is one way of solving it. Just for our understanding of the concept here. We can do mathematically also. Okay? Look how it will be done. Please just understand the solution. Later you can copy also, because in the question bank they may not be giving you the better solution. Okay? Good solution. So you should be finding out theoretical stress concentration factor. So theoretical stress concentration factor is nothing but maximum stress by nominal stress. Shear stress at the time of stress concentration, shear stress with stress concentration to shear stress without stress concentration. Okay? So with stress concentration means it will be occurring at this location where there is a hole. Where there is no hole, okay, where there is no hole, you will not be having any sort of stress concentration. So we have to find out shear stress at this one. So here we have to find out tau max, and here we have to find out tau nominal, and we should be taking out the ratio here. So for this thing it is very easy. You people know that shear stress due to torsion is nothing but 16T by pi d cube. Is it right? And this D should be capital D, diameter of the shaft here. I hope everybody know or everybody is familiar with this formula here. Is it right? If you simply apply torsion equation, you will be getting shear stress on the periphery as 16T by pi d cube, where D is the diameter of the shaft here. Yes? So we know this value here. Now let's get shear stress for this case here. So if you take this particular situation or this particular cross section, here this is nothing but a hollow shaft. As metal is removed at the vicinity of the center, it becomes a hollow shaft here. Now how to get the value of shear stress? So we have the shear stress formula for torsion as T by J is equal to tau by R. Here R is nothing but larger diameter or larger radius here, that is capital D by 2, and J value for this case is nothing but pi by 32 D power of 4 minus small d power of 4, because it is a hollow shaft here. So substituting these values, we can get the value of tau as T into R, that is capital D by 2, J is nothing but pi by 32 into D power of 4 minus small d power of 4 here. So this gives you the answer as 2 will come here 16 t d by pi into d power of 4 minus small d power of 4. So we got the value of tau maximum, we got the value of tau nominal. Understood? So now I am substituting here. So I am continuing here. So you should be writing down below of this. So now kt, if you take the ratio, it will come as 16t d by pi of d power of 4 minus small d power of 4 into this one here. It will come in the denominator. So this will come as 16t by pi capital D small q. So now if you simplify this, pi will go, 16 will go, t will go here. So you get the answer as d power of 4 by d power of 4 minus small d power of 4. This comes out to 1 minus small d by capital D whole power of 4. I just divided numerator and divided the numerator and denominator by d power of 4. So I got the answer as 1 by 1 minus small d by capital D whole power of 4. Understood? Okay. Now let's see. If this value is increased, d by d whole power of 4. If this value is increased, d by d value is increased, automatically the denominator value will increase. Is it right? Just a minute. D by d whole power of 4. D by d whole power of 4. D by d value is being increased means denominator will decrease. The whole value will increase. Yes. Yeah. So here we see d by d ratio, if it is being increased means denominator will. So d by capital D is increased implies denominator decreases. This implies whole fraction increases. Implies kt increases. Theoretical stress concentration factor value increases. Understood? So if they don't use fatigue stress concentration factor or the word as fatigue, that means it is theoretical stress concentration factor itself. Understood everyone? Clear? So you can solve in this way, or you can simply judge that bigger is the whole, more is the stress concentration. So it should be increasing. So higher is the stress concentration means more will be the value of theoretical stress concentration factor. So the answer should be increasing. Any doubt regarding this particular question? Okay everyone, let's go ahead. So we have come to almost the end. Just I think 30% part of this chapter is left over now. So cyclic stresses, next one. So they are nothing but dynamic stresses only. So literally we're understanding why that cyclic word is given, because mostly we'll be using sinusoidal curve for these stresses. So we are going to deal with these dynamic stresses now. If you take a dynamic loading, okay, one particular dynamic loading will be definitely different with respect to another type of dynamic loading. The variation of traffic over a road bridge will be different with respect to variation of the load acting on a railway bridge from time to time. So dynamic loading will be different from case to case. So it becomes very difficult to deal with every type of dynamic loading. So what we do is, we take the actual dynamic loading condition and then whatever the dynamic loading condition is there, using that we will draw an approximate sinusoidal curve. So based upon the way the load is going on varying here, so we will draw a sinusoidal curve, load and time. So load, time. Load, time. So if it is like this, time, load, like this. Okay. So depending upon the variation of the actual load, we will approximate the curve to have a specific maximum and specific minimum. So this particular curve or particular sinusoidal curve has a specific maximum and specific minimum. Specific maximum value and specific minimum value. Understood? So you don't need to worry about this approximation here, because in the questions they will directly give you this maximum value of stress and minimum value of stress. Okay? Why we are having stress? The reason is we will divide this load by area, because it will be more good, or the calculations will be more appropriate if you are dealing with stress directly, because we are anyways doing the comparison with respect to strength values. Understood? Clear? So we'll take out the loads, divide the area and fit it onto a best sinusoidal curve. Okay, so the sinusoidal curve, why it is taken? The reason is sinusoidal curve will have a specific maximum, specific minimum, and that helps us to design or do the designing with respect to this particular dynamic loads very easily. Understood? So in this way we do the approximation, and the resulted sinusoidal curve we call it as cyclic stress. The resultant sinusoidal curve we call it as cyclic stress. Understood everyone? So this resultant sinusoidal curve we call as the cyclic stress here. We will not be using a dynamic stress. We should be using dynamic stress. We can be using dynamic stress also, but cyclic stress term will be more appropriate because, or more accurate because, this will be considering that we already have approximated into a sinusoidal curve. So the curve is sinusoidal thing, a cyclic thing. That thing is taken care in this particular term. That's the reason why we'll be using, or we'll no longer be using the term as dynamic stress, but instead we'll be calling the term, or we'll be using the word as cyclic stress. Understood? So when you take a cyclic stress, or basically a curve, it will be having a specific maximum, specific minimum. Using them, we can get the value of mean stress and amplitude stress using these formulae. You can see here, mean stress is equal to given by simply maximum plus minimum by 2, average of maximum and minimum. And amplitude stress is maximum minus minimum by 2. Understood? So first of all, copy these terms here. There is another term called as stress ratio that is given by minimum stress by maximum stress. Understood? So copy the terms, copy these particular diagrams and the terms from the secondary screen. Then I will explain you the physical significance of mean stress and also amplitude stress. Come on everyone. We don't need that much high level techniques. Basically what we should be doing is, we should take the curve and we find out the area of the area under the curve. Okay, so the area under this particular curve, both should be same. That's the main deciding factor to produce this particular fitting curve here. Understand? You'll be understanding in higher studies because it's not required for now. Okay, so maybe like the techniques which they use to put this or do this approximation beyond our scope. Okay, so if we try to understand also, we might not be understanding at this level. So let's go directly. So in every question they'll be giving you a specific sigma max and sigma minimum, so you don't need to worry about that. I just took two cases. For example, you take traffic on a bridge. Okay, if you take traffic on a bridge, that will be one side only, either load will be tensile or compressive. You can have a, sorry, I'm repeating once again. Mohammad Anas Khan Danish. I just took two cases where in one case load is completely tensile only. Either it will become zero or it will be remaining tensile itself. Okay. I took another case where load is for some point of time it is tensile, for another point of time it is compressive, and so on like that. Understood? So I'll show you the examples. We can have cases where we'll be having only tension, only compression, or you can have both tension compression as well. We have all the cases. That's the reason why in the next slide we are going to study about classification of cyclic stresses. Everybody done copying these things here? Shall I rub the board? What happened? Copying is done. So let's understand the physical significance or the technical significance of mean stress and amplitude stress. What exactly the significance of mean stress and what exactly the amplitude of this particular means, what exactly the significance of amplitude stress. So mean value is taken, in statistics mean is taken to take the constant value out of the variation of the data here. So our data or the stress value is going to maximum, going to minimum, going to maximum, going to minimum. So if you take the mean, we are taking an equivalent value which is taking care of both maximum and minimum. Understand? So instead of dealing with both sigma max and sigma minimum, so we are dealing with sigma mean. Means basically it is taking care of staticness of load or stress. Understand? So we are taking staticness here. We are considering staticness here. So you're not concerned about the variation. Okay, so maximum is this much, minimum is this much. So if I take the mean value, that is the equivalent value here. Understand? So mean stress is taking care of staticness of the load or staticness of the stress here. Now when you take care of amplitude stress, sigma A, so amplitude stress is having difference of maximum to minimum. So how, if the difference of maximum minimum is very high, that means dynamicness of the data is very high, or dynamicness of the stress is very high. So amplitude stress is taking care of dynamicness of load or stress. Dynamicness of load or stress. I hope it is clear to everybody here. So this particular mean stress is actually taking care of staticness of the stress here, and amplitude stress takes care of dynamicness of the stress here. Understood? So if Ishita is having a doubt here, cyclic stress means it will repeat itself after particular time or what? Exactly. Cyclic means repetitive. Understand? So we are using a sinusoidal curve, so that's why this is given as the name cyclic stress instead of dynamic stress. So everybody understood the significance of mean stress and amplitude stress? Okay. So stress ratio. So stress ratio is not having any much significance. It is simply the ratio of minimum stress by maximum stress. And please remember to put the stresses along with sign. Okay. So whether it is minimum stress, if it is negative, don't neglect the negative sign. So maximum stress, minimum stress, everywhere you should be putting along with sign. Then only your answer will be right. Understood? Okay. So you guys can copy the classification of cyclic stresses. It is completely based upon the value of sigma mean, sigma amplitude for each and every case. So kindly copy the classification. I will explain one by one. So once we do the designing, or once we study the designing for each and every type of cyclic stress, we are done with this. Or we are done with this chapter. Understood? Clear? So kindly put the classification. Let's look at the first one here, fluctuating stress. So fluctuating stress means it will have some minimum value, maximum value, and the stress will be going on varying between these two values here. Because in the second one, that is repetitive stress, sigma minimum is going to become 0. Understood? So kindly put the rough diagram of this graph and write down that sigma minimum should be non-zero. This is the must and required condition for this fluctuating stress. Okay, so we can have the scenario where sigma max and sigma minimum both are greater than 0. We can have the scenario where sigma max and sigma minimum both are less than 0. We can have the scenario where sigma max greater than 0 and sigma max or sigma minimum less than 0. We can have any case, but this should be there. Sigma minimum should be not equal to 0. Understand? One of the best example for this type of fluctuating stress is stress on the pillar or the column of this railway bridge. Because due to the weight of the beams which are kept on the pillars or the columns, you already have some minimum stress. Okay? So over this, a train is passing. So stress goes to maximum when the train is passing over that. When train disappears, stress will again come to minimum. So when train comes, it goes to maximum. When train goes away, it comes to minimum. So minimum value of stress is already there. Understood? So this is an example of fluctuating stress. Okay. So next one is repetitive stress here. So the only difference between fluctuating and repetitive is only the mathematical difference here, that is sigma minimum is equal to 0. When sigma minimum becomes 0, you have only sigma max. So let's see the parameters here. So So here sigma minimum is equal to 0. This is the condition. So if this is the case, sigma mean will become simply sigma max by 2. Sigma amplitude also becomes sigma max by 2. Okay, so minimum value is equal to 0. Okay, and you have stress ratio as 0 because sigma minimum is equal to 0 here. Understood? So if you are taking a plank and hitting the plank with a hammer, imagine you are hitting with a hammer. So when you are hitting the hammer, stress in the plank will go to maximum value. So once the hitting is over, the blow is over, it comes to minimum value, 0 stress. Again you hit it, goes to maximum. After the hitting, it goes to minimum. So hitting a plank with a hammer is nothing but a repetitive type of cyclic stress. Understood? Kindly copy. We'll go with the last one and very important one. So next one, or the last one, reverse stresses. So reverse stresses means the required condition is sigma max magnitude is equal to sigma minimum magnitude. So both should be equal, but this is maximum, this is minimum means this should be positive, this should be negative. So this gives you sigma mean as 0. Sigma amplitude, if you do the calculation, you will get it as sigma max only. Because sigma amplitude is sigma max minus sigma minimum by 2. Okay. So example, yeah, sigma max is equal to sigma. Sigma minimum should be minus sigma. So using them, sigma mean is 0. Sigma amplitude is equal to sigma max minus sigma minimum by 2. Max is sigma, minimum is minus sigma by 2. It comes out to be sigma. So we see that sigma amplitude is equal to sigma maximum. That's the reason why I written as sigma A as sigma max here. Understood? Kindly copy this thing, everybody. Stress ratio value comes out to be minus 1 because sigma minimum is negative value. Okay, sigma maximum is equal to positive value and both are of same magnitude. So you'll get the value of stress ratio is minus 1. Kindly copy this also. So if you take a small element on the topmost fiber of the wire and bending it like this, a small element is there. So when you are bending down, there will be tensile bending stress sigma. Okay, you want to break the wire, so you are bending the wire like this. So tensile stress is there on the top fiber. Now you bend like this. Okay, you do the repetitive bending like this, right? You bend down, then you bring to the normal condition or normal position, then you bend up, then normal position, then bend down, normal position, bend up. So in this process, what happening is when you are bending to the normal position, stress E is becoming 0. Then when you are bending to the upward position, stress E is becoming compressive. So you see that due to this particular continuous change of the states, like from here to here will come, then here, then here, then here, like this. Tensile 0, compression 0, tensile 0, compression. So if you plot on the graph, you will get stress like this. So this is time, this is sigma. So initially it is starting with sigma, you can take it, or in fact it will start from here. So 0 here, it is going to down, you are bending down. So it is going down here, then it comes to this position here, 0, then goes up, then goes down, goes up, goes down, and so on like this. Understood? So this is the maximum value of stress sigma, and this is the minimum value of stress sigma here. Understood? So we see that here it is an example of reverse type of cyclic stress. Understood? So we'll study regarding this thing in detail. So we'll start the designing part for reverse stresses first of all, and then we'll go to the fluctuating stresses. So once you complete for both these two and install the numericals, we are done with this chapter. Clear everyone how we are getting, how we are deciding this particular example or this particular loading as designed for static loading. Sorry, designed for how this loading has reverse stresses here. Clear to everybody? So this is the first position, second position, then third position, fourth position, then fifth position, sixth position, seventh, eighth, and so on. So you can see here with respect to conditions here. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on like this. Now I hope there will not be any confusion. The only difference is if you are starting with bottom fiber, here, when it comes to here, tension 0, compression. So for the bottom fiber, the curve will come like this. It will start from 0 here, then it goes to tension 0, compression 0, tension 0, compression. So you are going to get again reverse stress only. The only difference is whenever upper fiber is experiencing tension, lower fiber will experience compression, and vice versa. If you are considering both together, we got two curves. We are dealing with stress. Okay, we are dealing with an element, a material element here. We cannot deal with two different stress elements at the same time. Even in SOM also, when we are discussing about principal stresses, etc., we'll be dealing with a small element first of all, stress element there. So if you take stress components, principal stress, etc., for this element and compare with the other element, it will be different. So we can't take both of them simultaneously because both are experiencing stresses. If it is like same component at the same time, same element at the same time is experiencing tension and also compression, so net effect will become 0, right? So whatever you are thinking is valid for the case where same element is experiencing tension and also compression at the same time. In fact, net stress will be automatically become 0 when stress tensile is there and compression is there. Understood? So but here we are dealing with two different elements. If you are drawing two curves, I mean. Clear? How mathematically we can say that reverse stresses are dangerous than fluctuating and repeated? Okay, so I'll just try to take one loading condition or state of stress condition, and I will try to prove it mathematically here, so that you guys will be having a clarity that reverse stresses are a little bit more dangerous as compared to other two types of cyclic stresses. Okay everyone, I'm rubbing the board.